There hasn't been a war in over 12,000 years. Not because the galaxy found peace, but because it remembered what happened the last time someone forgot fear. In the outermost spiral arm of the Viray's galaxy, deep beyond the charted routes of any alliance, lies a dead zone. A void where sensors fail and nothing returns. Most star maps mark it only with a warning. 3 words etched into every language. Do not enter. No one remembers who wrote it, but everyone obeys it. In the heart of that silence floats something older than empires. A solitary platform, cold and silent, orbiting a collapsed star that no longer emits light. The platform is not mechanical. It is alive in ways the galaxy never learned to understand. And on it lies a human. She sleeps, unmoving, protected by an energy field that pulses faintly every few seconds, like the heartbeat of something watching. No name, no signal, no explanation, just the final relic of a species that vanished at the height of its power. They once ruled not by fear, but by necessity, because when the darkness crept into known space, only humans dared meet it in open war. And when that war ended, they didn't stay. They didn't claim territory. They simply disappeared. The last known human was placed in stasis not to survive, but to serve as a warning, a seal. No one speaks of what they were sealing. No one dares. But the law remains, passed down in silence from one generation to the next. The humans must not wake. And for 12,000 years, that rule held, until someone broke it. Far from the central systems, a small vessel drifts along the edge of the forbidden sector. It belongs to the Zentari Republic, curious explorers, archivists of the old world. The pilot, an aging scholar named Dr. Viralix, never believed in myth. He believed in data. He had spent 40 years studying an impossible anomaly, low-frequency pulses that repeated every 12 days, as if calling out through deep space. The pattern matched nothing known, except one thing, a classified record of human origin signatures, sealed centuries ago. No one listened. So Viralix went alone. He didn't cross the boundary out of arrogance. He crossed it because he couldn't live with the question unanswered. What he found was not what he expected. The platform existed. It matched every forbidden record. And there she was, human, breathing, sleeping, surrounded by a shell of energy that defied analysis. His scanners failed. Instruments failed. The laws of physics bent slightly, subtly, as though space itself was reluctant to interfere. He approached cautiously, watching, recording, and then her fingers moved. Just once. It could have been reflex. It could have been coincidence. But then her eyes opened, and in that moment, space around the platform seemed to still. No alarms, no lights. Just 2 human eyes staring directly into his ship's viewport. She blinked once, slowly, not in confusion, not in fear, but recognition. She sat up, turned toward the stars, then whispered something no system could translate. The platform began to pulse. And across the galaxy, in quiet corners and ancient archives, a long-forgotten warning triggered. Encrypted signals bounced between abandoned satellites. Dust-covered machines stirred. The humans were not extinct. They were waiting. And now, one of them was awake. Viralix had spent his life chasing questions. He never expected one to look back at him. Inside his small research vessel, silence pressed in like gravity. His instruments went dark. Every warning light blinked red, then vanished. He wasn't afraid. Not yet. He was still trying to understand. The human didn't speak. She simply stared through the viewport, her expression unreadable. Not angry, not confused, just aware. Virelix reached for his recorder. It didn't respond. No signal. No power. Even the emergency comms were dead. The moment she woke, everything changed. He floated in orbit, still inside the boundary of the energy field that surrounded the platform. That field had been passive only moments ago. Now it pulsed in slow, deliberate rhythm, almost like breath. The human stood. The platform adjusted beneath her feet. She looked up at the stars as if she recognized them, then turned toward Virelix again and raised one hand. Every atom in the hull of his ship trembled. No explosion, no impact, just a low pressure, like the universe itself was clearing its throat. Virelix froze. He hadn't moved this close to provoke her. He hadn't touched the platform. He had only looked. And now she was awake. The human lowered her hand. Somewhere deep within the planet-sized structure below the platform, something activated. Old machinery, not mechanical, but quantum in nature. It ran without noise, without light, but it reached across subspace. And something responded. Thousands of light years away, hidden in the data core of a forgotten space station, an alert sounded for the first time in 12,000 years. It bypassed every firewall, overrode every protocol. It carried no words, just a symbol, one the galaxy hadn't seen since before its oldest nations were born. A single line through a circle, the mark of the last human command. Protocol Z3. In the capital of the Zorlan Confederacy, a minister watched the symbol flash on an ancient console and dropped his glass. He had only seen it once before in restricted archives from the founding age. He had thought it myth. Now it was real. In every empire, every station, every ship across the core sectors, encrypted fragments began to assemble. Old warnings, footage, redacted files suddenly restored themselves. And all of them told the same story. Humanity hadn't lost a war. They had ended it. Then they had vanished not to flee, but to seal something away. Virelix didn't know any of that yet. All he knew was that the human had turned away from his ship and stepped forward onto the edge of the platform. She knelt, touched the surface. A soft light spread beneath her hand. Then she spoke. The words didn't translate, but every molecule around her vibrated with meaning. And something answered. A deep sound, distant and immense. Not a machine, not a voice. Something else. Something waking. Virelix backed away. His hand shook. He had come for answers. Instead, he had pulled at the edge of a sleeping storm. The human turned her head slightly, not looking at him, but making sure he could hear. She spoke in a calm, steady voice. And this time, the words translated. You should not have come here. Then she turned to the stars again. And for the first time since she woke, she looked afraid. The woman did not tremble. She did not panic. But behind her silence, there was something Virelix couldn't quite name. Not fear. Not pain. Recognition. Like someone who had read this page of history before. She rose slowly from where she knelt. The light beneath her hand faded, but the echoes of what had awakened continued. Deep below the platform, the quantum structure thrummed with a rising pulse. The kind of rhythm machines don't make. She stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the stars as if searching for something that had moved. Then she spoke again. Only 3 words. Protocol Z3 active. The air around her shimmered. Virelix watched from behind his now useless controls, unsure if she even knew he was still there, or if it mattered. From deep within the platform, a spherical object rose into view. It hovered silently behind her, orbiting her like a moon. Its surface flickered with coded patterns too fast to track. A relay beacon. Autonomous. Self-aware. and it was transmitting. Across the galaxy, things began to respond. On a forgotten listening post buried under the crust of an abandoned moon, lights that hadn't blinked in millennia came to life. Beneath a mining colony on the edge of the Orion Path, a terminal rebooted with a single phrase, "Human presence confirmed." And in the archives of the Silent Council, the elders awoke. They hadn't met in over 7,000 years. Because there hadn't been a reason. Until now. Back on the platform, the woman turned. For the first time since she woke, she looked directly at Viralix. Her gaze didn't carry anger. Only weight. "Your ship recorded this?" she asked. Viralix nodded, voice stuck in his throat. "Then listen to what it means." She closed her eyes and spoke as if reciting a memory sealed in her bones. "We were not gods," she said. "We were the last wall. The ones who stayed behind when everything else collapsed." She raised a hand toward the stars again. "We didn't win. We sealed it. We buried it beneath layers of time and quantum lock. But there was a cost." The platform shifted beneath her. New layers of code lit the surface, maps, schematics, star paths, all drawn in glowing arcs. She pointed to one. "The seal is fracturing. Something woke it before me." Viralix felt his spine lock. His translator whispered, "Containment breach detected. Secondary triggers activating." She stepped toward the edge of the platform and let out a breath that seemed to ripple through space itself. "You think your people found peace because you evolved." She shook her head. "You were spared because we made you forget what came before." Her voice dropped. And now someone broke the silence. Viralix could barely speak. Is it coming back?" She looked at him one last time. "It never left," she said. "It waited for one of us to wake first." And with that, the sky changed. Above them, a faint distortion shimmered. Something far away, but moving closer. Fast. Impossible. Stars flickered. Not dimming, blinking, like something in the void was closing its eyes. And, in that instant, Viralix finally understood. She hadn't been the alarm. She had been the lock. And now, the door was open. The stars were silent, but silence had never meant safety. Now it meant absence. In the days following the humans' awakening, thousands of systems began to pick up strange signals. Background radiation shifted by imperceptible degrees. Time dilation pockets formed and vanished. Entire satellite constellations dropped offline without explanation. But it was what didn't happen that made the galaxy tremble. There were no declarations, no demands, no sign of war, just a change. Like the universe itself was holding its breath. In the capital world of the Zorlan Confederacy, emergency meetings were called. Elders, who hadn't spoken in centuries, emerged from retirement. No one dared speak the word human out loud, but the images were undeniable. A living one, awake. And somewhere in the sealed archives of the Confederacy's oldest temple, a forbidden file opened itself. Its encryption unraveled, as if knowing the time had come. Inside a record. Not a message. Not a warning. A memory. It showed a star collapsing unnaturally. Not dying, not exploding, simply vanishing. Erased. In the frame, a ship hovered at the edge of the destruction. Sleek. Dark. Human. Its pilot didn't flee. She activated a weapon that didn't emit light or fire. It bent space. The footage ended with a phrase. Last use of phase lock technology. Event sealed. Commanders enter final stasis. The Confederacy's high speaker watched the footage in silence. He was old enough to remember the old stories. He had laughed at them once. Now he couldn't breathe. Back in the outer systems, the woman, Commander Elira Cade, walked across the platform as if retracing a familiar path. She wasn't just awake. She was preparing. A second relay activated. This one sent no message. It received one. Somewhere in deep space, far from the populated worlds, another human stasis chamber stirred. A faint pulse. Then a heartbeat. But not just human. Something else stirred with it. Something that remembered the war the rest of the galaxy forgot. Cade stood at the center of the platform. Her eyes closed. "We tried to save everyone," she whispered. "We thought putting ourselves to sleep would end the cycle. That they wouldn't come back if we didn't either." She opened her eyes. Now they burned, not with fire, but data. Streamlines of memory, code, experience from lifetimes ago. "But we underestimated the others," she said. "Not the enemy. The curious." Her hand hovered over a recessed console. It scanned her palm. A voice responded. Her voice. 12,000 years younger. Containment integrity compromised. Authorization required to initiate secondary array. She answered it in perfect sync. "Commander Cade." Confirmed. Across the galaxy, deep beneath dormant moons, and inside the cores of ancient stations, machines began to stir. Not weapons. Not yet. Just signals. Old ones. Too old for most to understand. But some remembered. In the ruined halls of the Kraith Dominion, the last archivist watched the wave of signals return. He knew what they meant. Not just a breach. A response. The humans hadn't vanished to save themselves. They had vanished to buy time. To trap something the galaxy couldn't fight. Something that now was moving again. Alira looked up. The distortion in the stars had grown. It wasn't just coming. It was watching. And it had recognized her. The silence was ending. But this time, it wasn't the humans who broke it. It was the thing they'd locked away. And now it was hungry. In the deepest reaches of space, something stirred. Not a creature. Not a ship. Something older. It moved between the stars without leaving a trace. Not even gravity noticed it. The only sign of its presence was absence. One by one, systems went dark. Outposts lost contact with the network. Signals dropped mid-transmission. No debris. No explosions. No survivors. Just silence. And the silence was growing. On the platform, Alira Cade stood with her back to the stars, watching the relay nodes continue their slow, deliberate work. Each node sent signals into subspace. Each one was a key. And somewhere in the distance, the lock had begun to open. She turned to Viralix, who remained aboard his vessel, orbiting helplessly near the edge of the platform's field. He hadn't moved in hours. He couldn't. His systems were partially restored now. Not by his doing. By hers. Enough for him to witness. Enough to understand. "You still don't know what's coming, do you?" she asked. Viralix tried to speak. Only one word came. "No." She nodded slowly. "I didn't either. Not at first." She stepped forward, voice steady, almost distant. "It didn't come from a planet. Not from a lab. Not from us." She looked out toward the dark stretch of space where the distortion flickered like a wound. "It came from somewhere else. We called it the fold. A tear in the pattern of time. It wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't supposed to exist." Viralix listened, caught between awe and dread. "When we first encountered it, it wasn't a threat," she said. "It was a whisper. A shadow in the data. Something we couldn't translate." Her voice dropped, but then it started listening back. The relay behind her surged, pulsing with brighter light. Subspace trembled. Alira's gaze hardened. It didn't destroy civilizations. It rewrote them. Thoughts twisted. Time inverted. Some entire species were erased before they even began. She paused. "We fought it with everything we had. Time manipulation. phase lock drives, reality anchors. Nothing lasted. Her hands clenched. But humans, we adapted. We learned to bend with the pressure, not break. We learned to think inside paradox. She stepped onto a raised section of the platform, now glowing with synchronizing symbols. That's why we stayed behind. Not to win, but to seal it. We used ourselves as the final key. Locked it into the fold. Stasis wasn't sleep. It was containment. She turned to Viralix again. But when you woke me, the seal cracked. It's not your fault. Curiosity is natural, but the consequences are no less real. Viralix finally found his voice. Can it be stopped? Her eyes dimmed. If it gets fully through the breach, no. Nothing survives. Not even memory. She reached toward the sky. The only option now is to wake the rest. Deep beneath the platform, ancient protocols activated. Coordinates transmitted across space. Stasis vaults buried on long-dead moons began to stir. Alira looked to the stars. They're out there. Others like me, dreaming in isolation, waiting for the call. Her voice softened. I only hope we're not too late. Above them, the distortion grew. Not just a shimmer now. A shape. Something vast. Impossible. Not light. Not shadow. Both. And it was watching. The platform hummed with renewed energy. Not a mechanical drone, but the pulse of something ancient and alive. Alira Cade's eyes glowed faintly as she scanned the vast expanse of stars. The fold's distortion loomed nearer, a creeping shadow in the cosmos. Inside her, memory stirred, fragments of battles fought and losses endured, etched into her very DNA. Beneath the platform, hidden deep within the quantum core, dozens of stasis chambers began to pulse in unison. One after another, they opened, silent awakening across forgotten worlds. Ships long dormant flickered to life in hidden docks. Command signals surged through encrypted channels. The call had been sent. Elsewhere, in the shadow of a dying star, another human stirred. Not as composed as Alira. Raw, unready. Her eyes snapped open. She gasped, as if surfacing from a nightmare that wasn't her own. She remembered the war, the fold, the cost. But she also remembered hope. Back on the platform, Alira turned to Viralix. The others will come, she said. Each of us carries a piece of the lock. Alone, we are vulnerable. Her voice hardened. Together, we can hold the fold back. But only if we act fast. Viralix looked at her, struggling to grasp the enormity of what he'd witnessed. He had come seeking answers. Now he faced a truth older than his understanding. The fold was no mere enemy. It was a force of unmaking. Why did you sleep for so long? He asked. Alira's gaze pierced the stars beyond. To survive, she replied. To hide what we were. To protect the galaxy from the darkness we could not destroy. But now, she whispered, that darkness has returned. Suddenly, the platform shuddered. A ripple passed through space and time. The fold was close. Alira raised a hand and focused the energy of the platform. Her voice rose in a chant of old codes, forgotten by most, but alive in her mind. The quantum core responded. Lights traced patterns of containment around the platform. A barrier. For a moment, the stars stilled. Time bent. The fold recoiled. But it was only a delay. The breach grew wider. Ships across the galaxy reported strange fluctuations. Power grids faltered. Communications scrambled. The fold was not just coming, it was reaching. Alira's eyes locked on Viralix. This is no longer your universe alone, she said. It is ours all to fight for. Behind her, one of the newly awakened humans stepped forward. Younger, fierce, with eyes that burned with defiance. We are ready, the newcomer said. and we will not fall again. Alira nodded. The time of silence is over. Outside the platform, the void began to twist and ripple like a storm on the horizon. The battle for the universe had just begun. The void beyond the platform twisted and churned like a living wound. Alira and the newly awakened stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the darkness grow. Viralix's ship hummed faintly as he struggled to regain control. The energy field around the platform had stabilized, but the threat outside was undeniable. The fold was no longer just a distant shadow. It was moving. Without warning, the first ripple erupted. A wave of distortion pulsed through space, invisible to the eye but deadly in its effect. Ships in nearby systems dropped from their orbits. Communications cut out in mid-sentence. A tremor ran through the very fabric of space-time. The fold was attacking. Alira's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "We hold the line. Activate the containment protocols." The platform responded, sending out a web of quantum shields that shimmered like fractured glass. But the fold's assault was relentless. From the swirling darkness, shapes began to emerge. Not ships, not creatures, but something else. Shifts of pure entropy, tendrils of unformed chaos that warped reality around them. Alira's team moved swiftly. Each had their own bond to the ancient tech buried deep in the platform. Together, they sent pulses of stabilizing energy that pushed the fold's tendrils back, briefly. Viralix, watching from his ship, felt his skin crawl. This was beyond anything he had imagined. "These aren't just weapons," he muttered. "They're like a sickness." The dark tendrils writhed, seeking weakness, probing for cracks. And every second they probed, the platform strained harder. One tendril slipped through. It wrapped itself around the edge of the platform's core. The quantum energy flared wildly. Alira slammed her hand down on a console, sending a surge of power through the system. The tendril screamed and dissipated, but not without damage. Alarms blared. Systems flickered. "Containment is failing," one of her team warned. "We must hold," Alira shouted. "If the fold breaches fully, it will unravel everything. Time, space, existence itself." The younger, awakened stepped forward, her voice steady but fierce. "We fight or we fall." Alira nodded, eyes burning. "Then we fight." Outside, more distortions emerged. The fold was massing its forces, preparing for a second wave. Viralix's ship shuddered violently. Power surged and failed. He gripped the controls, desperate to maintain orbit. Inside the platform, Alira activated the last defense, a burst of pure temporal energy designed to reset the fold's incursion. The platform glowed with brilliant light. For a moment, the fold faltered, pulled back by the force. But then it roared back, stronger and more focused. The battle was far from over, and Alira knew this was only the beginning. The void trembled as the fold surged forward. Alira stood at the heart of the platform, surrounded by the awakened humans, warriors born from forgotten time. Their faces were etched with determination, but their eyes told stories of ancient pain. This was their moment. Viralix watched from his ship, powerless but unwilling to look away. The platform was a beacon of hope and a fragile fortress against oblivion. The fold's tendrils lashed out like living shadows, twisting and writhing as they sought to unravel the quantum lock. Each pulse threatened to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. Alira raised her hands, palms glowing with energy drawn from the deepest wells of the platform. Her voice rose in a chant older than the stars, words designed to bind, to hold, to fight time itself. Around her, the others joined in, a chorus of defiance echoing across the cosmos. The fold recoiled for a moment, but then it screamed, a soundless roar that rattled minds and fractured space. From the darkness emerged a form, not fully material, but shaped from the chaos itself. A being that was neither alive nor dead. Alira's heart hammered. This was the ancient enemy, the core of the fold. "It remembers us," she whispered. The entity's eyes, if they could be called that, focused on the platform. A pulse of raw energy blasted outward, shattering shields and sending shockwaves through the stasis chambers. One of the awakened cried out, collapsing as her containment field flickered and died. Alira clenched her teeth. "We cannot fail." The team rallied, sending waves of stabilizing energy toward the platform's core. Viralix's ship joined the defense, firing precise bursts of experimental weaponry designed to disrupt the fold's energy patterns. Time bent around the battle. Seconds stretched and compressed unpredictably. Alira felt her mind slipping, memories of lifetimes mixing with the present moment. But she held on. With a final surge, she focused everything she had. A beam of pure temporal energy shot from the platform into the entity. The being screamed as it unraveled, fragments of shadow dissipating into the void. For a moment, silence. Then the fold began to collapse inward, the breach sealing as the ancient locks realigned. Exhausted, Alira sank to her knees. The others gathered around her, weary but alive. Viralix's voice came over comms, shaky but clear. "The universe is safe. For now." Alira looked to the stars, knowing this victory was a fragile one. "We woke the humans," she said softly. And with that, the universe remembered its true defenders. But she also knew this was just the beginning, for the fold was not gone, only waiting. And humanity, once forgotten, was now its greatest challenge. The universe had one rule, and the humans had broken it.